that hive mind to work with? What are the things that, pique your interest? If I'm throwing out a bunch of ideas for documentaries or for feature films, does this get your gears rolling? If not, then, how about these? Then I know what I should kind of gravitate towards.
Well, I think that's so important that you just mentioned that, because so many people are afraid to announce publicly what they're doing or what their dreams are because they feel they're going to be judged by people. They might judge themselves. What if the path to your passion looked nothing like you expected? Michael Determan didn't go to film school. He went to business school. But somewhere between the numbers and spreadsheets, he discovered a different calling in visual storytelling. Michael carved his own way into the world of filmmaking. His career didn't start with red carpets. It started with a no. No roadmap, no guarantee, no safety net. But what he did have was clarity, drive, and the ability to pivot when the moment called for it. Today, Michael is an award-winning director known for projects like Behind the Bucket and his upcoming film, What Happened to Dorothy Bell. Michael's story will remind you there's no wrong road when you're moving toward purpose, here on Navigating No. Michael, thank you so much for bringing it on here today and being willing to jump on early because you're Chicago time, but you're just someone who has worn just about every hat in the film industry, whether that's being the director behind the powerful documentary Behind the Bucket, a Garrison story with our friend Tom Rosie. And your career has spanned from filmmaking to cinematography to producing and storytelling, and you're all driven about the passion of basically the human side of extraordinary communities and bringing people together. And I just wanted to thank you very, very much for being a part of this today.
Well, thanks for having me. This is great.
Well, can you introduce yourself into the audience and kind of let everybody know like what got you into the film industry and how you came along with your journey on that?
A little background about me. It's been 20 years in the making, so I didn't start out fully in the film industry, and I still feel to a certain extent that I'm not. You always feel like you're still on that journey to try and get to that end goal. I started nights, weekends, anytime that I had free time to do filmmaking, I was doing it. I didn't go to film school. I went to business school. Mm-hmm. I figured that after I got my degree in business, I would go to film school. It never happened. I ended up getting my master's in business. I know, and this makes sense, and it does make sense later on in life that it worked out well for me because you look at everything as a business, and that's how I've had sustainability. This is, I love making art, love creating, but it is at the end of the day a business. So yeah, it's been 20 years in the making. I hope that answered that question. I tried to truncate it because 20 years is a lot of time.
Well, it is a longer time, but like I wanted to go to business school. But I never got into film, but at the same time, I loved movies and I loved, the ability to maybe act in the future. And so was there ever a draw of that? Like, did you always like art? You had mentioned art, but was there something always on the creative side where you're like, oh, it'd be neat to do a Broadway show, or it would be neat to produce a film or a short film in the backyard with like a video camera back in the day, like a camcorder? Like what kind of sparked that interest or was there some split with business school? Like it was one day all of a sudden you're like, I just want to follow this passion.
It was ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be in film. I first started wanting to be an actor, but I found out that I am not good on screen. I mean, maybe not. I mean, I'm a little too harsh
right now.
But actors are very critical. You know this.
Yeah.
Always looking for constant approval. I need validation. If I don't get it, and the audition process was a lot different. 20 some years ago than it is now. Like mm-hmm. For now, you can not in a bad way, but you can hide behind a camera and send in an audition. Mm-hmm. Before you could still send in auditions too, but a lot more in person, and people are very critical. When you're in person.
100%. Well, during a cattle call, and it's
during a cattle call, and they'll pick out everything. Like your nose mm-hmm. is too big, or you're too tall, you're too short, you're too white, things like that. Like it's just there's so many things that people just pick out. So. Yeah.
Well, and it's like when you're on that side, you start to question yourself, and you have that imposter syndrome. You're like, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I do have a lazy eye, and I'm never going to make it. But when you were on that, what kept you going, and what kept you interested in it?
Just the thrill of wanting to do it. I mean, I figured that at some point I'd find my path. Uh-huh. It's one of those things where you just keep pushing. My parents are very big on, always pushing forward and always moving, in that forward direction. So I guess I was too dumb to quit. I guess that's the best
No,
description.
I've heard that before. I've heard it before. Well, it's interesting to think, because now you're on the opposite side, right? You're the one giving an audition and you're doing a casting and you're looking at different actors who might fit a film. Like, is that because you were rejected, not all the time, but like, did that rejection allow you to put yourself in the shoes of an actor or an actress who wanted to come in and be on one of your films? Like, are you able to put yourself in their shoes because you've been them and you can kind of see through the lens of their eyes, and it kind of gives you a little bit more of a background, I guess, point of view? Does that help you as a director?
100%. You tend to have a little bit more compassion towards people's feelings and towards, like, the delivery of lines, especially if it's an emotional scene. You have to give someone a beat because they're digging into some deep and dark places sometimes to get that. And if you weren't through that to a certain extent, and I didn't have a lot of experience, but if you don't have that, you can't relate. I feel it's always good. Maybe directors or producers take an acting class from time to time. Be in front of people, be exposed, be completely, lack of better terms, like naked in front of people when you're trying to do a scene or trying to do something like that. So I think it helps out just in general. It gives you kind of an anchor. So,
well, absolutely. I love that. It does. And so you can go back to it and it kind of keeps you real, right? And you can put yourself in both of those shoes. And I think that's stellar. Like, did anyone that you were acting with and you were trying to get into the industry and you've become friends with, have they tried to get onto your films? And like, is it true that you kind of hang out with who you work well with, and like maybe you might hire somebody that and it's like that the three people separation, where you can actually somebody and everybody knows this person? So I work well with this crafts person, I work well with this hair and makeup person, and this producer. Like, do you guys find that you keep in a tight community?
yes, it's actually a very small community if you think about it. Every time I turn around, or any production, you always find somebody that knows somebody that you've worked with, or a friend of yours, or things like that. It's just we usually gravitate towards the same crews. Who doesn't want to make it with people that you can trust?
And
I know this makeup person is going to do an amazing job. I know this audio person is going to do great. It's one less thing that a person has to worry about. It is nerve-wracking for me sometimes jumping onto sets where I don't know anybody. And that's happened recently, several times, where, you as a DP, because I'm also a director of photography, so you jump in and you have to mold. And I find that it's very difficult sometimes because you have to navigate people's personalities, and it's just, it's one of those things where I say pivot a lot, and I learned to pivot quite a bit. And especially...
Well, yeah. What are some major pivots that you've had to make within the film industry, whether that is behind the camera or while on set, or even financially? I mean, it could be any of those three, or you could have all three.
Well, I had a career that spanned 20 years in a completely different industry. I was in business at a big organization, and they were trimming and pushing people out, and ended up getting to that point. So I ended up taking this full time. In that 20 years, though, I was building up these, what people call so-called muscles. I was doing productions and doing, again, like on nights and weekends, I was doing feature lengths, things like that. So I was building up those muscles. So I had to pivot several years ago into doing this full time. I wasn't financially ready to do this. I wasn't even, let's say, for example, mentally ready to be, doing this full time. It's not, I didn't go to film school. And I don't like to focus just on that, but I didn't have the blocks, the founding blocks, or what do you want to say, like the
foundation,
the roots that a lot of people that I'm working with do. It's just I didn't have those. So you start to other people that you work with probably don't pick that out. They probably don't care. It's just, but you think internally like, hey, I don't have this base knowledge that these other people did. I have it all practical. I learned it through people. And there's gaps. There's some things that I didn't learn. There's some things that I don't know. There's some things that I'm still learning. And, that's a tough part too, is just also learning to shut that off in your head sometimes to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay to not be 100%. It's okay to not know everything. And that's part of my having to pivot, is that, in the business side, like I went to school and there was a job that I did really well. I could get done with a lot of my work before noon, and that's what I did. And then you go into, this full time where it's constantly having to adjust. And, the film industry is constantly pivoting. I mean, there's going to be, for example, you got a shoot set up outside. It starts to rain. All right, cool. What are we going to do? Or you have an actor that just, is running late. What are you going to do? You have a director that comes in, especially if I'm a cinematographer or a DP, and says, the blocking's changing. So, and the blocking, for people that don't know that, is, how a person or actors are going to, run through an environment in a scene. So maybe the actor's way over on the left side instead of the right side, but I worked with, gaffer and lighting and getting everything set up so it's on this side, but not that side. So you just have to pivot and be like, all right, cool. Well, things have changed. I need 15, 20 minutes to adjust and, make this work.
Well, I love that you mentioned that, because there's a magic. When you're watching a film, you don't see who's pulling the strings, right? It's just like going to Disneyland or something like that. You don't see everything behind the curtains. And there's so much put into 10 seconds of film. And you just don't realize how much effort and how much time and how much money and energy is put in for that, just that 10 seconds that you see on film. And it could be anything from, I was on set for the movie The Surrogates with Bruce Willis, and I remember the guy next to me hit the camera, and it offset everything, and it completely set us behind like 25 minutes just because he set it off. He just made that little bitty bump, and you have to be willing to pivot on that, or you have to be able to like set yourself up for success down the line, or trim some kind of time frame, or just reset and keep your cool. And it's just interesting because most people don't see that side, but you have been. Is there something that a movie that you looked forward, like aspiration wise, or that you loved growing up and you're like, I want to be able to make a movie like that? Or how awesome would it be to make a movie like Goonies or something?
Oh, who doesn't love Goonies? That would be great. I know on my back burner, I always have wanted to do a Western, because I grew up watching Westerns with my folks, and those have always been fun, but I want to make something that's impactful. I know this sounds really weird, and who doesn't want to make something that's impactful? But when I was younger, I remember watching with my parents The Great Dictator with Charlie Chaplin, and it's been referenced quite a bit lately, especially the last couple of minutes when he's giving the speech. I didn't quite know when I was younger what that speech meant. I didn't, it just, you're young, you're just like, all right, cool. It's, he's giving this impassioned speech about people. But then you look and you see like your parents or anybody else that was in the room, because I was really young, and you see how it kind of stops people from what they're doing. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to impact people. I wanted to make something that people took time to like process. And that scene, particularly when people watch it, it makes people think.
Yeah. Well, and that's true. It's like in we all want to make a difference in this world, right? And so whether it's me doing a podcast episode, or writing a book, or being on stage, we all want to impact or reach certain people and change people's lives. And you mentioned it earlier about you were getting the reps in and you were practicing because you didn't have the background. And if you change industries, like, I mean, I was a personal trainer and a strength coach, and then all of a sudden, and an actor and a model, and then all of a sudden I moved into the motivational speaking stage. And along the way, I had been practicing because I'd always been teaching kids classes. I'd always been in front of big groups and classrooms. So it was like, it wasn't the biggest transition, but it was like, I had to put those reps in order for me to become on stage in front of thousands of people. And it was something that I consistently did and I kept getting better at. And it sounds to me like you had your career going and, I mean, you went to business school and you were applying that in corporate, but then you on the sides, on the weekends, at night, early in the morning, you were practicing and honing those skills and improving those skills because you had to swim upstream to catch up with everybody who had gone to film school. And what was that when you made that leap from going from corporate to filmmaking? How scary was it to jump off that abyss?
It's terrifying. It's still terrifying. It's still, I don't think there's a day that I don't wake up maybe freaking out, but if you want something, you just keep pushing for it. And it's really easy for me to say, and because a lot of people deal with the same thing, to just tune it out. But sometimes you have to. Sometimes you just have to turn off that little voice inside that says, "Hey, what are you doing? Just stop this. This is being foolish. You're being very dumb right now, Mike. Just go to something that's safe, something that's easy, something that you can do." Like I could go back into being a data analyst. I could do that. That's something that I could do. I know that. This is a safety net. I don't know necessarily if I'm going to be able to pick up. Was it?
Do you feel like knowing that you could at least telling yourself that, like, I can always go back to working that. There's always going to be a job. Does that get that safety net? Does that give you just that little bit of motivation to be like, I can do this? Is that what is maybe that little, having that safety net is a secret for you to keep challenging yourself and stepping outside that box?
Yeah, because I also look at it as if I go back, then I've to a certain extent failed. Then I failed myself. And that's one of the things where I keep gravitating towards, is that I want to be able to keep pushing and proving it to myself. It literally, I know it sounds weird, and people will probably say, "Oh no, you're trying to prove it to some other people." Like, no, I'm just trying to prove it to myself that I can make it.
If you keep up with the Hollywood major directors, and that you can get into that, or the documentary groups, it's like you want a film that takes off, makes a huge impact, that people talk about. And I agree with you. Like every single day, you don't know what's going to happen, and you're always looking for the next gig. You're always looking for the next film, the next actor to maybe be a part of of one of the films that you want to do. But it always driving yourself forward and making that happen, I think is the secret, because you're still continuously moving forward, but you're believing in yourself just enough to step outside that comfort zone, and you're pushing yourself. And I love that you said that you don't want to go back to it because you feel like you fail, right? And it's like, when I lived in Spokane and when I was going through high school, I worked and I built fences forever and did construction. And I told everyone on my crew, I was like, I'm not coming back after I go to UW over in Seattle and I go to school, because I want to do international corporate law. I want to learn Japanese. I want to go to business school. And that was that drive. I could always go back to building fences. And I still love, I'm going to not lie. If somebody asked me to build their fence, I would do it for them, because I still enjoy it. Right. But I told myself, I already promised that crew that I would never come back to Spokane to do that. And that was kind of my little fire under me all the time that said, I can't go back. I've got to keep moving forward. And it was like, as long as I kept trying to attain what I wanted to achieve and I wanted to go forward, then that just gave me that drive. And come full circle, I am back in Spokane, but now I have all these skills and all of this knowledge and experience that I came back with. And I'm not building fences, but I'm still back. And I absolutely now can look back and say, I have achieved what I've wanted to achieve, and now how do I keep growing? And it sounds to me like you just do that on a consistent daily basis of like, what am I going to do next? What is going to be my next film? Who am I going to bring on?
And what role am I going to fill in? I know I'm trying to be open to new experiences. A couple years ago, I directed a feature-length narrative film. It's still in the editing process right now, and that was terrifying to me, because it was not something that I had done. I had done it still when I was at my other job. So I had a lot of vacation banked up, and I took 22 days off of work. Yeah, that was,
That's a lot of time.
it was to me, it was a challenge that I needed to do. You know, whether things fall in your lap or come your way because you're supposed to do them or not, you know, sometimes you have to kind of look at it like, hey, did this film come to me because I'm supposed to do it? Is this my destiny? Is this the direction I'm supposed to go in? You know, if all the stars align, maybe yes, let's do it. Let's make this work. Yeah, it's just, and that was a pivot. That was like, hey, you know what? Either I do this film as, you know, directing this narrative that I've never done before, or I, you know, go back to my regular day job, you know, and just say, hey, okay, I'm not going to take the time off. I'm going to pass on this film. You know, I'll just get the next one. But it's also in my mind, I keep thinking, well, what's the next one? Is there going to be a next one? Could there possibly be a next one, or is that it? Is that my chance to, you know, direct? I don't know. I can't tell you that. That's one of the things where, you know, I'm glad I have these internal arguments with myself a lot, because it's one of those things where I'm like, all right, let's just keep pushing forward.
But you don't know. You're never
don't
going to know if that is the script that's going to make the most impact. You don't know if that script is going to be the next Emmy winner, right? Or an Oscar winning film. You have no clue. And so if you don't do it, you're never going to know. And if you do it, if you don't do it and somebody else gets it and somebody does it, you're like, yeah, I love the stories on like Instagram or Facebook now, or where they interview some actor and they're like, what are the roles that you missed out on or you denied or whatever? And they're like, oh, I wish I hadn't done this. I wish I had taken that role. Right. And because you never know. So the thing is that when it does land in your lap, it's up to you to make that choice. And if you say no, then you're never not going to know what's going to happen. And so it seems to me like you're always taking that chance. And when something does land with it, you run with it.
Yes. That sounds easier than what it is, but you know, I'm always second guessing
100%.
myself.
No, 100%, because you're right. It's like when you're given something, you're like, it would be easy if this was easy, but there are pros and cons to taking on a new role. Like what are you going to miss out on if you don't, right? Like what is the opportunity cost of saying yes to this film versus waiting another month or 2 months or 6 months for another film? And you're never going to know. There's never a good time to buy a house, right? You buy a house when you want to buy a house, but you can always play that Tuesday morning quarterback or whatever, it's the Monday night quarterback, where you can always look back and reflect on it and say, oh, I wish I had done this. But it seems to me like you took that chance, you jumped off that abyss. And even though it's scary, you continue to challenge yourself. You continue to look at the different roles and you're learning, you're growing, and you're enjoying the process, or you're enjoying this journey as much as you can and sleep as much as you can.
Well, exactly. Like you're saying, you're learning and you're getting the reps in. I think that's the best way. So we're just getting the reps in. And that's something that I always, my folks, okay, let me deviate a little bit. My folks are going to be proud of me no matter what I do. My mom was definitely a huge supporter of mine, but they always taught me, whatever you do, just be the best at it. Just try and push, you know, even consistency is key. Like there's people out there that are much better than I am. 100%. I support people that I know that can do directing better than I can. They can do DP work better than I can. There's so many things that they can do better. They can write better than I can. But I'm still showing up. I'm going to be there no matter what. I'm going to keep pushing forward, because eventually consistency is going to lead to success. You know, that consistency of doing things repetitively, doing projects, doing things like that, learning to become a better DP, learning to become a better producer, director, things like that. It's all going to pay off. It may take a little bit of time, but eventually I'll get there.
I could not agree with that more, Michael, seriously, because you are getting those reps in, and there's a million speakers out there. There's a million authors. There's a million strength coaches. There's a million podcast hosts, and being consistent and continuously trying to provide memorable content that's valuable, people will eventually refer me, right? And you are just waiting for that next one for you. And some work and some don't, and you just continuously improve yourself, and being humble enough to know that there's somebody who's always going to be better than me. But the greatest part is that there's only one you. right? There's
Yeah.
only one you. And maybe there's somebody who can write better than you, but there's nobody who can write better than you with your experiences and with your talent, that has the friends and the confidence team behind you that can maybe be a group part that can take you to that next level. And it's like being able to leverage your skills. And maybe your skill at the beginning when you first got into this was being able to find time when other people were sleeping. You were sacrificing your free time, your sick time, so that you could continuously improve yourself on another career trajectory. And maybe that's your skill set. Maybe that's something that got you so far ahead that now you have directed these major films. You are a you have made an impact with some of the things that you've done, including Behind the Bucket. The Garrison story is like that film is one of my favorite films because I'm an uber Star Wars fan and I'm a 501st Legion fan. But the way that you brought the community together and you showed literally behind the bucket, behind why these men and women dress up and why they do what they do, was impactful. And when we had Tom Rosie on here, he talked about it. It was like, you guys created something that really can relate to a lot of people, not only because Star Wars is so relatable to so many people and it touches hearts of people, but the fact that you showed the deep emotion behind when they dress up as a stormtrooper and being able to reach out to somebody who's sick or has cancer. And the only person that these kids can relate to or want to see when they're on hospice or anything like that is to see a stormtrooper or Darth Vader or Princess Leia or something like that. That's like, that emotional hit in the film was impactful. And anyone I've ever talked to at any of the cons, any of the celebrations that I've gone to, know that movie and know that they were impacted in some way. So I am here to tell you now and compliment you that you have hit it out of the park with something that was impactful. And I cannot wait to see what you come up with next. But it's like, you have made a difference. And that right there, you are skilled enough. You do have the expertise enough. And so maybe you have that internal brain that's always telling you like, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it or not. But when you have that confidence team of people behind you that believe in the value that you bring, I'm one of those cheerleaders for you. And I love what you've done. And I love that you haven't given up and that you're still going, because you and I could both go back to corporate, but I have so much fun doing what I do now. Like, I don't want to.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine going back to corporate. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm glad that it has impacted a lot of people. I mean, it started as something I didn't know how to do a documentary. Not a clue when we first had started. It was going to be a 15-minute YouTube short that was going to be for the Garrison. Mm-hmm. And then we started gathering more and more stories, and then it just became a beast of its own. And so we just kind of followed that path. Again, the whole time we were just, freaking out to a certain extent, like, all right, how are we going to put this together? All this stuff that we have, how are we going to tell, a fluid story? And you still look at it and you're like, this could be better, that could be better, cinematography could have, we could have done this, we could have done this other interview, you still pick it apart, but, I'm happy with the way that it has turned out, and again, it was a learning process. It was more reps. It was more experience to say, hey, you know what, if we screw this up, it's fine. There's no real repercussions. The only repercussions are myself.
Well, and knowing that you didn't start. Right? Like, starting was the hardest thing. And then once you started, then you had to figure out how to make payroll, how to do all these things. But it was like, starting was probably the most difficult thing. And then believing in yourself enough to go forward and do that would you tell a young director coming up or somebody who wants to get into the film industry, like, what was the hardest part about getting into your industry? Was it just starting and jumping in?
I think it's more yourself. I mean, I think we get in our ways so much. I think the only person that's going to stop you from getting into the industry is yourself.
So who do you talk to who might inspire you? You said your parents were a big influence for you. They all believed in you. You have friends. Like, is it a community that you can reach out and say, you know what, and brainstorm with people and say, you throw out an idea and then somebody says, Michael, that is fantastic, run with it. Like, do you have a group of people that you can communicate with and connect with and brainstorm that is, let's call it a mastermind group, that has helped you get to where you are?
Yes, there's a group of people around here, and actually now we've kind of spread across the United States, and that I still bounce things off of. And I ask them for advice or things like that, or just, feedback. But you also want to make sure that it's not just people that are going to give you the feedback that you want to hear. You need to have that constructive feedback. Not everybody's going to be right. If someone tells me that, this is a stupid idea, but I still feel in my gut that it's a good idea, at least I have their viewpoint. If they can explain to me why they think it's not a good idea, then that's great. If they're just saying, well, I just don't like it because that's just my preference, then I know that I need to keep pushing forward. That's one of the things where having that hive mind to work with, to say, hey, what are the things that, pique your interest? If I'm throwing out a bunch of ideas for documentaries or for feature films, does this get your gears rolling? If not, then, how about these? Then I know what I should kind of gravitate towards.
I think that's so important that you just mentioned that, because so many people are afraid to announce publicly what they're doing or what their dreams are because they feel they're going to be judged by people. They might judge themselves. But if you don't put it out there, then you won't get that positive feedback, that constructive feedback, that criticism, because you can test the waters, right? Like you keep mentioning like getting in the reps. Well, if I always just lift the same exercise in the closet and I don't know anything, if you're not out in the open and you see what happens, you see other people and what happens to them if they do the same exercise, like you can't critique it, you can't make it better, and you can't adapt and take what they do and what this person does and start to apply it to yourself and grow, right? And I think so many people are afraid to announce publicly what their dreams are, that it holds them back. And like with me, when I wrote my book, I thought I had a great book. I did. I thought that I had this wonderful book, and I put it out there, and the editor came back, and it had more red on it than black and white. It looked like a CSI event had just occurred on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, right? But if he didn't understand it, then the audience wouldn't understand it. And I wanted to quit. But at the same time, my friend was like, no, keep writing, change what happened, because it was criticism, and it felt like a giant punch in my gut, and it hurt. And all of the wind came out of my sails, and I wanted to be done because it took a long time to get to where I was. And I knew it was going to take a lot longer to get to where I needed to go if I wanted to do it. But I had that confidence team of people behind me saying, no, Blue, your story is really great. You just have to manipulate it a little bit and change it and move this over here and start over here. And because they told me to that, then I continued on. And then it came back a little less red the next time. But it was an organic transition. And at the end of it, and I've heard you say this, at the end, I finished my book. It went out. I still find errors. I still I wish I had changed it this. But I can't, it is never going to be perfect. Your job is never going to be perfect. Your film is never going to be perfect. You can always look back and change it. But it's like, as long as it's good enough to you and you start and you put it out there and you finish it, I think that process is what's most important. I think I've heard you say that.
Yeah, no, and I agree 100%. Yeah, it's nothing's going to be perfect. And that's something that's going to be tough for people to, get over, is that like sometimes what you have now and currently have completed might be the best that you can do on that particular project right now. I mean, you never finish anything. I mean, I've heard people say you never finish a project, you never finish writing, you just abandon it, you just move on. You just say, hey, you know what, I need to move on to the next thing. And the one thing that you had mentioned too is that, you got your book back and you had a lot of corrections and a lot of things like that, and you were discouraged, but you also reached out to people that are experts in that field. Mm-hmm. You reached out to people that aren't doing it maliciously. They're not doing it to just mess with you. They're doing it to make a better product for you, or to help you grow, or to help you, churn out a better book. And that's something that I like to do too, is I won't just reach out to anybody. I'll reach out to people that I know they're going to help give constructive criticism, help me grow, put a better product out there. Like Behind the Buckets had like 3 different endings. And now, when we finally released it, it has the final one that we needed. But we found out with people viewing it that we trust that there wasn't quite a completion. And I'm glad that we did follow that advice, because then we do have that wrap up at the end.
Oh, and it was fantastic. In all seriousness, it's like, I think a lot of people don't know that is that they do the testing of the films and they test the ending sometimes and see what the impact is. And you get that feedback from the audience and you can change the end of the film or you can add something in at the end. And it's like an organic change that completely goes forward. And if you are not willing to put it out there and test the waters, and be willing and open to hearing that constructive criticism, especially if it's not a malicious intent, right? Like, I'm not going to open it up to the world and put it on TikTok and say, what does everybody think? It's like, I'm going to reach out to my confidant team, my greatest support system, and my cheerleaders who do believe me. But then what you said was, they're not going to tell me what I want to hear. They are going to tell me the real reality, right? And they're going to be like, Blue, this totally sucked and this makes no sense. It makes sense to me because I wrote it. It makes sense to me because I said it, but not to them. And they're the ones that are the most important because that would be my audience. Those would be your viewers.
Exactly. And, just the same thing when you had your sensei, pushing you to keep going forward, to improve. It's not malicious. It's not mean. It's just you're trying to get to this end goal.
Look at you throwing out the sensei vocabulary word. I love that. But I mean, and I think that goes to everybody. It's like, I don't care if you're in the film industry or if you're an actor and a model or if you're a writer or you're construction. It's like, you need a group of people that are going to support you and push you. And they are experts in the field. And that's like a mentor-mentee relationship. And I'm sure you have a lot of mentors now that you can look forward to or you can reach out to. Are there people that are maybe possibly your mentees that call and reach out to you and say, Michael, how did you get where you are and how can I do that?
To a certain extent, yes. It just feels weird to me because I know this is, it's not self-deprecating when I say this, but it just feels like I haven't quite reached to that point yet. I haven't gotten to where I need to be. I don't feel as if I could be at that point of mentoring anybody at this point. I know it sounds weird. It's not supposed to be like, again, it's not like being down on myself. It's just being realistic that I feel I have so much left to learn. And I don't know if I'm ever going to feel or get to that point to where I've felt like I've learned enough or had enough experiences to be able to teach somebody. The only thing that I tell people is like, hey, just don't give up on yourself. Just keep pushing forward. Like, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't start. Like, you need to start somewhere. You need to just keep pushing. And yeah, you're going to churn out a lot of garbage and you're going to fail a ton. Like, I mean, I'm constantly failing, like, and not in a bad way, but just like, there's a lot of stuff that people don't know about, but you know what? They're never going to know about it because I'm only going to share my victories or the things that I feel that went well, and
But
getting back to that
too. I mean, all of those little failures have helped you get to the successes that you are, right? Like, if like, oh, the rain is coming down and it ruins our shot, and well, what can you do because you've been rained out 5 times during filmmaking that that maybe you can pivot really quick and go inside and get the same shot, or you can skip forward an hour and a half of that film and get that one scene, right? Like, because of all of those fails, all of those times of loss, that how to manipulate and how to change direction immediately and maybe leverage that to your advantage.
Exactly, 100%. And also to just learn to not freak out, trust the process. I mean, I had a film, like you said, for example, raining. The scene wasn't originally supposed to take place in the rain, but we ended up just shifting last minute and saying, all right, cool. Do we have enough coverage for camera? Well, if the character's standing in the rain having the same conversation, and it worked and it looked good, or for example, 2 weekends ago, I was on a short film and the sun was very precarious. There was sometimes that it was coming through really hot because it was getting through like the clouds or not enough, or there's construction noise, or there's, neighbors jackhammering like concrete outside. Yeah. So you just pivot and you say, all right, cool, we're going to shift the inside. We'll still get the same things done, but we may have to sacrifice a couple things in order to get the project done as a whole, because we have only a limited period of time. Let's say, for example, this one only had 3 days. So we have 3 days to get all these shots and all these scenes done. So what can we shift around and what can we do? You just, again, like I get back to the whole pivoting thing. I say that quite a bit, and it's probably redundant. It's just, I don't know. It's just, you get used to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think a lot of people forget that even the best known directors had their they started somewhere and they were putting out crap and they weren't making blockbuster films or documentaries at the very beginning, and they were learning the process. I mean, Spielberg got made fun of for Jaws the entire time, right? And the mechanical shark wasn't working forever, and then all of a sudden it turned out to be, you know, one of the greatest films of all time. And it's like you start somewhere, and everybody always sees the main achievements of what they've done, but they don't understand that story of that journey of all the fails and losses along the way. But it's just made him that exceptional director because of all of that history moving along the way. And even Lucas with Star Wars, is first time he put out Star Wars and everybody started looking at it, they're like, what if we change this direction? We move this film scene over here and we change this. And all of a sudden it looked completely different than the end film that everybody else saw. And if he hadn't had that constructive criticism, that sit down where people saw the film with him, then it wouldn't be what it is. And so to be able to reach out and ask for constructive help or that support system is mandatory. And then to realize, like, you just have to start. And you mentioned that, and being able to pivot along the way, but eventually you're going to create something special if you keep that consistent line forward. And that's what I keep hearing from you.
Oh, exactly. And also listening. Like, I learn a lot by just listening to what people say or do. I mean, I've even gotten advice from you. Like, and we've only known each other a short period of time. It's just, you know, I will just, you know, I'll try and absorb as much as I can from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because learning is a constant process.
Yes. School does not end the day you graduate, right? And it's like the more careers you change, the more you're going to keep learning. And you can learn from anyone. And I'm sure, like you just mentioned that, thank you for that shout out. But while you're on set, you can learn from an actor. You can learn, an actor might have been behind the camera 100 times more than you at that scene, and he can maybe give a little advice. Or even craft services can say, you know what, instead of putting all of our food right here during time, like before lunch comes, it's just like you're constantly learning from anybody within that industry, and just being welcomed or welcoming to that help or being able to listen is so important.
Yeah, listening is key. I know I warn anybody that's on a project, like directors or people that bring me on. I was like, you know, I'm kind of quiet at times, you know, and it's not because I'm not engaged. I'm completely engaged. I'm completely focused in, but I'm just absorbing everything that's going on.
So you're behind the camera, you're filming, like no one can read your mind, but you can have, before you start filming, you can kind of brainstorm and say, hey, this is the scene, these are the blocks, this is what it's going to look like, this is what I feel. But when you're behind the camera and everything's going, what is that sensation like? What's that emotion like as you're seeing it and it's not hitting the way that you want it or the way that you picture it? What are you contemplating? And then how do you say, cut, we got to do this again? Like, is there, what's that like? Because I've never experienced that. What's that emotional high or low when you're behind the camera, it's not working the way you want it to, but maybe you are quiet and people are looking at you and they're looking for an answer and you're not giving it to them?
Yeah, that's a terrifying position to be in. But if you stay calm and you're just, you know, transparent with people, saying, hey, this is just not coming across, you know, because of X, Y, and Z. This is why it doesn't look right. Or sometimes people, what I see is not being correct. A director or a producer or somebody else will say, hey, that looks great. And so then you have to take that and you have to balance it out and say, hey, is it worth me pushing to try and get this perfect shot? Or for this particular scene, is this good for what it is? If the director is like, oh, wow, that looks great. Like, cool. Well, we'll go with it then. Mm-hmm. You know, unless there's something like that's very technically wrong with it that you need to fix because you broke the 180 rule or something like that, that's just not going to work for the full edit. But if it's just a personal preference thing, or it's not looking the way that I was hoping it would, you know, you sometimes have to get out of your own way and say, hey, for the bigger project, for this, the director's fine with it. Mm-hmm. The director is good with it. You know, let's just move on.
Being able to move on and being okay with it and knowing and believing in that it is good enough, especially when you have someone or multiple people say, that was fantastic. Maybe they're seeing something that you didn't see.
100%. 100%.
I want to pivot really quick. Use that word. And just kind of go back to something else that you said, that you have a film that you've done and it has not yet released. Like you've been working on a project and it hasn't released, and you don't know, because that could be one that makes the most impact of anything. And a lot of people don't realize, like when you shoot a commercial or you shoot a movie or something, you're done, you've filmed, but then you have to wait for it to release. And that's a long process. That's a long gap in between you actually working anymore. How do you how do you fill your pipeline with more work? Because if you finish a film and you've finished editing and you're just waiting for that release date, you're not actually filming. So how do you fill your pipeline? How do you continue to do that? And how does it fall into you? Like, do you actively reach out to try to find things? Are you writing things? Like, what is Michael's process of filling the pipeline for new movies while you're waiting for the ones that you've already done to come out?
Constantly reaching out to that network that you build, saying, hey, does anybody know any projects that are going on, or reaching out to collaborate. That's a huge thing. I like to collaborate with people. I mean, there's so many people still on the list that I just want to work with. And, I feel
That's awesome
that it's like, there's stuff that I could learn from them, and also just be fun. Who doesn't want to do stuff with the people that they enjoy spending time with? That's the thing. And so then that kind of leads to other conversations. For example, there was a short film that I just did, the one that I did 2 weeks ago. There was a guy that I was talking to that we became fast friends, talking about his project, and we've been talking about, working together for 2 years, maybe a little bit longer. And then all of a sudden, like, this perfect opportunity came together, and we were able to do this, short film for, a group of people in the area. And I'm like, this is great. If it wasn't that I started that connection, I would never have that project. And now that project is going to possibly lead to yet another one. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the thing, is like, I don't know why people come into my life. You don't know why I'm in your life or other people. But if it's a connection that needs to stay alive, you keep it alive.
Yeah.
You can't talk to everybody every day, but sending a message once in a while. Like, I know I've sent you, like, hey, text messages, like, hey, how are you doing? How you been? Like, and it may be like a week or two later. And it's just like, well, I was just thinking about it. Like, if I get a chance to send a message to somebody, I'm going to. Even if it's a text message, keeping those things alive. I hope that answers your question, because I kind of deviated a little bit. I noticed that. So
No, I think the power of collaboration is very important for you and your industry, and knowing who you know and your network and connecting with people and feeding off of each other and working with the people that you love and that you want to be with and you want to make something magical with. How awesome is that it's a team of people that came together and actually created something together. And do you ever go out to the film schools? Like, do you ever post things on film schools, or do you, like, are there workshops or something like that? Like, how do you promote yourself and you continuously learn to collaborate with people that are maybe new to the industry or have been in the industry for a long time?
I'm horrible at promoting myself. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't like it. Like, even now, like, I'm racking my brain. Like, I I'm not a big fan of talking about myself or like what I've done. It sounds weird. It's just like, and we're in an industry where we should want to be like, hey, look at me. Like, this is what I've done. But again, it's just like, no, I don't. I'm horrible at, getting out there and saying, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm doing. Things like that. Probably not the best answer. Not the one that you want to hear, but it's true. It's just like, I just don't do it. I'm trying to get better at it.
Well, I think also the other thing is that your work stands the test of time. Like your work kind of is the biggest stage for you, right? It's like you don't have to sell yourself from stage all the time. And it's like, if people feel like what content you're putting out is memorable and valuable, then it's going to speak for itself. And it's like for Behind the Bucket, for example, you guys would send out these stickers, and I see those stickers all the time, right? So it's like, obviously, it's letting it speak for itself. And if you create something impactful, people are going to spread that. And you're right. Like, people are introduced to us all the time, and it's like, I met you through Tom, but I met Tom through a Star Wars celebration, and all of these things come together. There's these little tributaries that mean something, and as long as you keep them flowing, you never know who or when you're going to meet somebody who can fill that pipeline for you in the future, or talk highly about you, or refer your film, or bring you on set, or get you an actor or an actress that you've always wanted to work with. And it's like, you just don't know. And so you always have to be open, and you don't have to talk about yourself, but at the same time, as long as you're producing that content that is memorable and valuable, people are going to refer you.
And I've gotten a lot of it through referrals. I mean, that's the thing, is I usually just pick up work because people reach out to me. So I feel very fortunate with that. I'm always looking for new work. So if people are looking to hire me, that's fine. Like,
Well,
I'm always open.
Let's lead that into like what you're doing now. Like, what films are coming out that you're a big part of, and what are you going to do? Because I know that there's one that's coming out around the Halloween time that's going to be super duper scary and exciting. And so, like, what is it that you're working on right now that you're excited to come out?
So there was a feature film that shot a couple years ago, actually, when I was still at my day job, my corporate job. And I took some time off. It's a feature length, found footage feature length called What Happened to Dorothy Bell. And so it's coming out in October sometime. I'm drawing a blank on the date. I got to reach out to Danny, the director, because he has all the information there. But I was director of photography on there and also a co-producer. So I was able to, again, get the reps in for, another feature length, which is terrifying and exciting at the same time. So right now we're just waiting for that to release. There's going to be a small theatrical run, I believe he had mentioned. So that's always a good thing. But yeah, in that time frame, because of that film, I picked up another feature length that's coming up in January, because they had seen the trailer and seen my work on that and just mutual contacts. So I picked up another feature in January of next year. So
and
that's a good thing.
I watched the trailer and I was terrified. Like, I hate horror movies. And I was like, oh, I don't want to watch that. It looks super scary. But a friend of mine, Nathan O'Brien, and he is the founder of the Lilac City Comic Con, he puts on a Halloween expo here in Spokane. And I do want to connect the two of you guys, because I'm sure you know so many of the same people, and I'm sure you can collaborate in some way. But it's like he brings everybody in to celebrate the expo of all horror and anime, and it's just like it's this super cool group of people that come together, and I think that you guys should definitely collaborate on that one in some way or another with Nathan O'Brien. But the movie looked terrifying to me, Michael. Do you want to give kind of a little gist of what it is?
Yes. Well, it was great. And side note is we were able to premiere at Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas. So that was huge. I mean, like, we're screening at the same festival that Terrifier 3 came out, and the A24 film with Hugh Grant. I forgot which one it was. I'm drawing a blank now. But it was cool to be like in the same room or same environment as, bigger people. Like Elijah Wood walked past me. I'm like, this is really surreal and cool. This is not, something that happens every day. So it's nice to have.
Small? Was he the Hobbit at that time, or was he normal size?
He was normal size.
Okay.
Yeah, and he seems super nice. It's just like there's always people that glom on and want to talk, and it's just. But it was really cool. Okay, let me get back to breaking it down. So Dorothy Bell is about a young individual that is trying to find out what happened to their grandma. What were the occurrences that caused her to go crazy, and where she ended up. So it's just like her discovery of what happened to her grandma through doing an investigation at a library where she used to work. And I don't want to give too much away, so that's why I'm trying to.
Don't. That'll be a good teaser. It's a terrifying trailer. I was like, it looked scary, witches, and it looked slightly terrifying to me, like Blair Witch style. So I love that.
That's the thing, is there's also a found footage film. So for me, wanting to do something traditionally narrative, framing is a lot different. So you have to take into consideration, will this camera angle be, correct for this particular, scene? And, so that was a learning curve, another point of pivoting for me as far as filmmaking. So it was a good process. It was a good way of learning. Again, like, just more for the future, being able to do it. And this one that I picked up in January is a found footage film as well. So it's just, I know some of the hurdles that we ran into. I know some of the successes that we had. So I'm going to try and take those successes and multiply them to make this one a little bit more efficient.
Can you explain to the audience what a found footage film is?
It is a film where you're taking either footage from security cameras, webcams, cell phones, or from the perspective of the actual character themselves. So it's like piecing the story together, making it feel very realistic by saying, hey, we have this, footage that was found from this camcorder, and this is what it looks like, and it's in the perspective of them. So for me, for filming, I actually had to be the character several times. So I'm running around with the camera, spinning, diving underneath tables, going, very slowly down aisles in a library, because I had to be that character.
Yeah.
So the character, actually, the actor was attached to my shoulder, basically. They were just over my shoulder as I was moving around, with the exception of the ones where I was running around. But, it's something that's, when done correctly, you get very immersed.
Oh, I bet.
You start to question, like, is this real or is this not?
Yeah. Is this real or is this not? That's creepy already. I love it. Well, what has been one of your hardest no's that you've had to overcome, like the struggles for you to get into this industry? Or what is it, something that you would want to tell your past self 20 years ago? What would you want to know now?
I probably would have told myself to take the leap sooner. I really appreciate having the years of experience in business. I think that that's helped out quite a bit as far as, sustainability and marketing myself as a business, and, keeping track of finances, because not a lot of people get that background. I would have said, hey, take that 20 years, maybe make it 10, maybe make it 15, take that leap sooner, have that faith in yourself to say, hey, you know what, you can do this. And what's the worst case scenario? If you don't, you go back to what you were doing. But again, it's like I was told by a former employee of mine years ago, when I was actually working retail. They said, you don't want to get off the bus 2 stops before you get to your destination. So you never know if you're going to get there. So it's like, that's riding in my mind too. Because I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I feel like I should get off the bus now, but I don't know. Maybe that next time is going to be it.
Well,
So
you keep the faith, and
exactly.
you have not hit that destination yet, Michael, but it's like you can get off and enjoy the ice cream and then get right back on and go keep moving forward, because it seems like what you're doing. You're getting off and you're like testing this and then get right back on, and you keep moving forward, and you keep producing valuable content that people are enjoying, and it is impactful, and you are making a difference. Because if you can make that difference to one person, and they talk about you highly, and then I hear about you, or some of my friends hear about you, and we just keep pushing it and it starts to spread the word, then you've done your job, man. And I am super proud of what you've created thus far. And I'm looking forward to what you continue to create, and creating more for all of us to enjoy, because I don't know if I'm going to watch that scary movie. I cannot talk highly enough about Behind the Bucket and some of the work that you've done there. And so I just thank you for being a part of this today, and kind of sharing your message and giving a word of wisdom to especially the kids that want to get into this industry, or people who are questioning, are they in the right industry? Like, what are they learning? Is there any one final thing that you would want to tell everybody?
Man, I don't know. I guess I would say you're always going to question yourself. I've even heard that from people that are doing this and they've been doing it for 20, 30 some years. There isn't going to be a point at which you're going to think I'm 100% on the right track, because you're always want to improve, if that makes sense. So if you're thinking, hey, I'm questioning myself if I should be doing this or keep pushing forward, you're probably on the right path. Like, because you're taking into account everything that's going on. You're trying to get to this particular place. If you're thinking about that, then you're probably doing the right thing.
When you're challenging yourself both mentally and physically, right, to get to that destination. And I love that. And you're absolutely doing that. Where can people find out more about you and what's upcoming? And then where can people purchase some of the movies that you've done? Like, or where can they find and can they stream these films?
Yes, a lot of them are on Amazon. I know Behind the Bucket is, if you want to buy a DVD, you can get it through Walmart, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Target. So all their online sites. You can stream it on, again, like I said, Amazon, Tubi. I probably should have the list in front of me. And that's usually where a lot of them end up, is Tubi now. That's actually a really good resource for people in their films.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tubi. Okay. And then do you have an official website that people can maybe connect with you and collaborate with you and maybe find out, like brainstorm with you and see if they're working on a production and maybe you're the guy that they need to bring on?
Yeah, I have a website, determinedfilms.com. And I also work with, I'm a subcontractor, and I work quite a bit with a local studio called Backyard Dream Studios. And they're based out of Kenosha. There's a 10 by 30 LED wall, so we have the full virtual experience. So it's, similar technology to the Mandalorian. So that's a whole other conversation. So it's one of those things where, hold on one sec. Sorry, it's all right. I thought I locked the door. But it's one of those things where we have that full virtual experience.
That is epic.
Yeah, so I'll walk you through that one of these days.
I love that.
It's a lot of fun. So either backyarddreamstudios.io. You can find me on there too. Their in-house DP, so that's where you can find me there, or my personal site, or just find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to do it.
Well, I will connect people with you and push forward, and I really want to introduce you to Nathan O'Brien because I think he would be a good cat to know.
That'd be great, and I appreciate it. And yeah, word of mouth, and people want to watch it, people like it. Don't tell me if you hate it. I don't want to.
Right, but that I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave on that point, which is that a lot of people don't realize the power of leaving a positive review, right, or a 5-star rating. If you like the film, if you like the work, talk about it, mention it, because the amount of time and energy that you put behind these films is so impressive, and it does deserve something like a little shout out. And I am one to do that for you guys. And I love your work, Michael, and I look forward to seeing what you produce in the future. So thank you for being on today, and thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for becoming a friend of mine.
And likewise, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Michael. All right, enjoy your day, and be strong. You got this.
Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you so much for listening to Navigating No. If this episode brings you value, or you know someone who could benefit from it, the best way to support the show is by sharing and subscribing. It's completely free and helps us reach more people. And if you have any questions, feedback, or guests you'd like me to interview, drop a comment while you're there. I'd love to hear from you. And most importantly, thank you for tuning in, and let's continue sharing optimism and positivity.